Acquisition of signal with the Blue Ghost lander.
It's up to us to make sure that Blue Ghost gets to the moon safely.
When we first got into space and started getting telemetry, I think all of us had just a moment, challenges we faced. I'm just tremendously proud of the team.
If we're successful here, then what we could be doing is paving the way for people to have a permanent and growing infrastructure at the moon.
Good morning and welcome to our Blue Ghost Mission 1 press conference with Firefly Aerospace and NASA. I'm Trina Patterson, Vice President of Communication at Firefly Aerospace, and thank you for joining us. At 2:34 a.m. on March 2nd, Firefly's Blue Ghost lunar lander softly and upright touched down on the lunar surface. Just recently, we received our first image back shortly after landing. This image shows the moon's surface and the top-down view of the lander's RCS thrusters, with the sun glare a little off to the right. And even more exciting, we received my new favorite image from the top deck of Firefly's Blue Ghost lander. Standing stable on the moon's surface, in the background, you can see our home planet, that beautiful blue marble Earth. I'm looking forward to the additional images we will get as we conduct lunar surface operations over the next 14 days. Joining us to provide insight on this historic milestone and answer questions are Jason Kim, CEO of Firefly Aerospace, Vanessa Weish, Acting Associate Administrator for NASA, Ray Allensworth, Spacecraft Program Director at Firefly Aerospace, Dr. Nikki Fox, Associate Administrator for NASA's Science Mission Directorate, and Dr. Joel Kearns, Deputy Associate Administrator for Exploration in NASA's Science Mission Directorate. We will start this morning's press conference with some initial remarks from each of our briefers before opening it up for questions. We'll begin taking questions in the room as well as on the phone bridge. If you have joined via the phone, please press *1 to have your names added to the queue to ask questions. We will now begin with the opening comments from Jason Kim.
Thanks, Trina. Well, how about them Fireflies? First of all, I just wanted to thank the White House administration and NASA for entrusting in Firefly for these lunar lander missions and the Blue Ghost mission today. I think this C.L.P.S program, the Commercial Lunar Payload Services Program, started in 2018, and we began work, and this initiative really helped Firefly evolve from a rocket company to an end-to-end responsive space company that does launch, land, and orbit, and we're going to continue doing those missions. This next 14 days is going to be really challenging, and we're going to work to provide all the science data from all 10 C.L.P.S payloads. But I'm confident that the team will get through it, and this is positioning Firefly to continue to provide value to the cislunar economy. I also want to thank those that came before us. Eugene Cerna in particular, he was the last person on the moon to see the lunar horizon glow, and that's something that we'll capture in high definition towards the end of our mission. But I even saw Buzz Aldrin on X looking at the TV screen and looking at all the pads turning green, and so he was rooting for us, so that's pretty amazing. And then all the other former C.L.P.S missions that gone before us, we learned from them, a lot of lessons learned from them and other commercial companies too. So we're all in this together. We want to make sure that there's more and more of these missions to the moon, and anything's possible. These are scalable missions to Mars as well. And then there's the stakeholders and mission partners and investors and friends and family. They were here with us today. They stuck with us with Firefly through the ups and downs. Through great successes, they've always been there for us, like today. They've always been there to pick us up during setbacks as well, and just really appreciate all the love and care they've given to us, and builds confidence in our team. And then finally, our Fireflies. all 750 of them. They contributed to this mission success today. All the design work, the sacrifice in time and energy, away from home, away from their families and friends, to make sure those designs were great, make sure they were qualifying the design and system, make sure they were testing it and simulating it. It was muscle memory today. They were calm and collective. They really could have gotten excited at any moment, but they waited to the very end, like a very well-oiled, disciplined team. And to raise credit for leading that team through thick and thin. And so I'm just so proud of them, and just proves to me that they're unstoppable. And you're going to see more, because this is just the beginning. There's going to be more lunar landers annually, maybe even more a year. And then we're set to do more launches as well. So really excited about what the team accomplished today, and ready for any questions.
Thank you, Jason. Over to you, Vanessa.
Awesome. What an exciting morning. We're on the moon again, and we're on the moon again with the U.S. commercial lander. And I want to congratulate Firefly for a phenomenal landing. We're very proud of the Firefly teams and the NASA teams that contributed to this morning's achievement. It was just awesome. As was mentioned, NASA's Commercial Lunar Payload Services, which we call C.L.P.S, is part of NASA's Moon to Mars approach. And it is led by our Science Mission Directorate, and I'm very thankful for the leadership of Nikki Fox and Joel Kearns on this particular program and project. Under Artemis, NASA will plan to study more of the moon than ever before. And as a part of Artemis, this C.L.P.S model helps by investing in commercial delivery services to the moon, and it supports our long-term learning. This type of arrangement benefits both NASA and the partner. So we're sending our science experiments, and I know that Nikki and Joel will talk about the phenomenal number of experiments that we are achieving on this particular mission, more than we have before. But NASA is continuing to invest in commercial capabilities, and the way that this is going to work is that we'll be able to leverage both. Firefly is a prime example of how NASA is leveraging the entrepreneurial spirit and innovation in the American commercial space industry. C.L.P.S is opening the doors to scientific discoveries, technological breakthroughs, and other achievements. And we will explore the moon. We're going to learn, and what we're going to learn there will allow us to then go forward to Mars. So I'm looking forward to the continued missions that we have. We have another one, as was mentioned, later on this week. It's just amazing that we're able to do all of this in such a short time period. 2018 was the beginning, and look at us now. Thank you.
Thank you, Vanessa. And up next, we will hear from Nikki.
Yeah, thank you so much. Good morning, everybody. Yes, it really is an amazing day. We're so proud of all of the teams and all of the people that achieved this incredible landing today. As Vanessa said, it really does open up a whole new way for us to get more science to space and to the moon through our C.L.P.S program, and we're really proud of all of our C.L.P.S providers. They actually have formed a really great supportive community where each of the teams kind of helping one another out. I do want to give a lot of credit, obviously, to the Fireflies. They really are amazing. I had the pleasure of being able to visit with them last year, and actually I got to see Blue Ghost, which was very exciting, and also the plans for Blue Ghost 2 as well. And I'm also really proud of the incredible team at NASA Science in the C.L.P.S program, led by Joel Kearns, but each and every one of our incredible C.L.P.S team, just their supporting and ensuring that we have success with our missions. We are happy. We are starting to hit our cadence. You've heard we started in 2018 with the goal of having 2 missions selected each year and 2 missions landing each year. And so we are now sort of hitting the cadence that we really want to do to be able to get all of these precious payloads up to the moon. Some of the exciting things on this one, I'll take a couple of them and then I'll let Joel give his favorites. But for me, it's all about the regolith. We have an instrument on there that is going to actually look at how the regolith kicked up, what kind of plume it made as that lander came down, which is so important as we start landing more and more things and we start to set up that sustained presence on the moon. We need to understand when one lands next to you, what it does to your scientific equipment. We also have an instrument on there that's kind of characterizing the dust, finding out like how sticky it is, how tacky it is, and the real characteristics of that. And then Janet Petro's favorite one, because it comes from Kennedy Space Center, is the an electronic dust shield that is actually looking, if you flow a current through there, if you can actually displace the regolith or the dust that's built up, which is so important. We saw that during the Apollo days. But today we're just super, super proud of Firefly. Thank you very much for the beautiful journey to the moon, and really looking forward to the next 14 days of amazing NASA science. So thanks so much.
Thank you, Nikki. And up next we have Ray. And Ray, when you give us your remarks, can you tell the audience why we did not stream it live? We're getting a lot of questions about that.
Yeah, I can speak to that. So I just wanted to echo a few things that some folks have said. I really want to say thank you to all of our console operators, all the technicians, all the support staff that made Blue Ghost what it was, and everyone helped us get to where we are and what we just achieved. As Nikki talked about just now, we have a lot of really exciting payloads on board, and we're immediately moving into those payload operations. So we confirmed the status of the lander. We've safely, softly, and upright touched down in Mare Crisium, and there's no break for those console operators. We've already begun moving into surface commissioning and getting started on those payload operations. So, we landed at the very beginning of the lunar day, and we really want to maximize that entire time on the surface and really get as much payload data as back as possible for all of our customers. And then, so Trina asked a little bit, why didn't we live stream it? So we really want to dedicate all of our data, all of that kind of the data, the link from our antennas, our ground stations, to getting really strong telemetry. So that was really our primary focus. There were a lot of operations happening during landing, and so even though you might have the camera capability to do 4K and live streaming, it's not always the most practical thing to do in the moment. But there were, like I said, a lot of ops. There were also payloads operating during descent. One of those payloads Nikki just talked about, so C.L.P.S was operating, and so now we're gonna, work on deploying our antenna, getting that X-band operating, and getting all that data down. So hopefully we'll be able to share that with y'all very quickly.
Thank you, Ray. And last but not least, let's kick it over to Dr. Joel Kearns.
Well, thanks for being here. First, I want to thank and congratulate Firefly and remind you that this is Firefly's mission to the moon, which under C.L.P.S, NASA has contracted to bring our 10 scientific and technology instruments to the surface, have Firefly operate it, and bring the data back to Earth. Science and the pursuit of scientific questions really does enable exploration robotically, and also exploration by our human explorers, which we'll see on the moon soon. And the more we explore, the more questions we uncover for science, because the more we learn about the space frontier. Nikki talked about a few of the scientific investigations. First, I have to say I don't have a favorite. I love all 10 of them the same. We do have some interesting investigations having to do with drilling into the surface of the moon to make scientific measurements, to deploy instruments that'll take physical measurements around the landing site, and also to manipulate the regolith under the lander. These are all things that are useful in their own right, will help answer questions about the nature of the lunar surface, but are also, in a way, technical achievements that will let us go off and prepare future experiments that'll either be done by C.L.P.S or they'll be done by Artemis Human Landing System flight crews. I also want to point out that what Firefly demonstrated today, I think they made look easy, but it's incredibly difficult. This is an incredibly challenging technical feat to pull off, to land anything on the surface of the moon. And what you saw today is an existence proof that the model that NASA has been pursuing since 2018 is possible to be successful. And now the question is going to be, how far can we exploit this for the benefit of the United States? What I will do is I will close again with, I really give the great thank you and congratulations to Firefly Aerospace, which has really helped today open up further the space frontier for the United States and our allies.
Thank you, and thank all the briefers that we've had here today. We will now open it up for questions. Please just ask one question. If we have time for another, we will go into the queue for the other. When asking your question, please state your name and affiliation and who the question is directed to. For those on the phone bridge, please press *1 to submit a question. If you find that your question has already been asked, please press *2 to withdraw it. Jeff Faust.
Good morning, Jeff Faust of Space News. Question for Jason or Ray. How close did the landing follow the plan? Were there any sort of anomalies that you had to overcome during the descent? And how accurate was the landing?
I can start and then pass it to Ray. From my observation, and I'm not in the day-to-day weeds, but details, but the team was clockwork. You know, ever since launch to acquisition of signal, to translunar injection, first burn was close to 0 millimeters per second precision. No makeup burns required. Then you got a series of 6 more burns. You know, there was a series of lunar orbit injections. Never had to do a makeup burn because the team just was clockwork. And then everything I saw on the telemetry screen behind Ray, everything was as planned. You could see everything within the margins, and you even saw the landing happen like clockwork. So from my observation, the team just nailed it. Over to you, Ray.
Yeah, I really want to echo what Jason said. You know, I was in the control room at the time of landing, and I could say that it really did go to plan. We had a couple different contingencies that we did not have to use, which is amazing. So, you know, it was kind of like you were reading a script. We were able to go through that procedure. We didn't have to abort any burns. We didn't have to recycle. We didn't have to go around the moon another time. It went extremely well. And then you asked about the accuracy. So I left the mock before we got some of that data down. I do know that we're within our range, the 100-meter ellipse on the lunar surface. But, you know, we're kind of trying to figure out exactly how close we were, and that data probably already exists. I just haven't had a chance to read it yet. We did do 2 hazard avoidance maneuvers on the way down, so that tells us that our software did work, you know, exactly as it needed to. You know, it needed to avoid those hazards on the surface, and it did so twice, and it did work. We landed safely.
Okay, go ahead.
Judith Cesare, ABC News for Vanessa. We saw what Buzz did, which was really clever and fun. He said dibs. But this sort of points to the fact that C.L.P.S builds on Apollo, and which leads to Artemis. Could you talk to me a little bit about that?
Yeah, so for us, and I want to thank Jason for talking about the history and the fact that we're building and we're learning. And so, you know, we had Apollo. Now, a lot of the things that we're doing today is enabled by the shoulders that we stand on. And so now with C.L.P.S being the robotic missions, I know that some of our engineers are now having the opportunity to participate as well on the C.L.P.S missions. And then that's helping them as we prepare for going with the human missions to the moon. But C.L.P.S is the beginning of Artemis because it is robotics. And then when we go to the moon this time, we will have both robotics and human missions going on at the same time. And that's really what we're trying to do. And doing it with, you know, government-led programs, commercially led programs, international programs, all being on the surface at the same time.
Okay, let's take one more from the room, and then we'll take one from the phone. Go ahead.
Okay. I'm Caroline. I'm with the Austin American Statesman. I wanted to ask Jason or Ray just a little bit about Texas as a whole and what it means for you guys to have your company here based in Texas and to be building it here in the state.
Ray, I'll get started and then pass it to you. I grew up in Dallas, and it's incredible to watch, from an early age, what NASA has done for this country and for the world. I watched the shuttle programs. I saw the science. I didn't really get when I was little how NASA impacted the whole world, but it does. Later on in life, I've realized there's just game-changing technology that came from NASA. And, having a couple of lunar lander companies that are within a week of landing on the moon from each other. We're the first ones to do it this week, but there's another, our friends in Intuitive Machines that are about to land, and we're rooting for them. That's incredible. That just shows you a proof point that Texas is the capital of lunar landers right now. And, we're going to continue doing second and third missions. Intuitive Machines has a few more, and we have a few more. And then you got the Texas State Commission that's giving out hard-earned grants to these kind of companies. Intuitive Machines received one, and so did Firefly. And we're going to use those funds, those hard-earned funds, towards expanding our lunar lander production line. And it just shows that Texas is committed to space and to NASA. There's a long history of Johnson Space Center. And we're just proud to be a Texas company, making Texas proud, making America proud. So over to you, Ray.
Yeah, I think one thing that I really am proud of is, I know when I graduated college, if I wanted to work in the aerospace business, my options were really to kind of go to the coasts or go to other states. There wasn't a lot of opportunities, especially in small companies, startups, that kind of environment. And so, to have companies like Firefly, to have companies like IM starting up so that, the places that you were born and you were raised and you went to school and you get to stay here and you also get to work on these phenomenal programs. And that's really true for a lot of people that work at Firefly, whether you're an engineer or a technician or, you work on our facility staff, you're able to live and work where you grew up. And I think that's really important. And NASA's really enabled a lot of that growth with these companies. And, you've seen what we can accomplish from that.
Okay, operator, we'll take one from the phone.
Our first question comes from Marcia Dunn with the Associated Press. Your line is open.
Just wanting to confirm that indeed the lander is within the 100-meter zone that was targeted pre-launch. Are you within those 100 meters for sure? It was unclear to me. And the hazards that were being avoided, were those boulders? Do you know? Thanks.
So I will say the team is analyzing all of that data. All of the indications that we have so far is that we did land within our required landing kind of perimeter within Mare Crisium. The team is going to continue to evaluate that data and get our exact kind of, what that deviation was across that, and we'll definitely release that. And then I talked a little bit about the hazards. There are boulders, there are rocks. So you're exactly right. Those are the type of hazards that the lander is avoiding and that software on board was helping us avoid. So, Mare Crisium, we expected it, NASA expected it to be relatively hazard-free, but that doesn't mean there's no hazards. So you always have to be prepared for that, and the lander was, and we were able to operate around that and land safely.
Thank you, Ray. We'll take another one from the phone.
Our next question comes from Bill Harwood with CBS News.
Yeah, hi. Bill Harwood, CBS for Ray again. Ray, you guys carried out countless simulations of every kind of anomaly I guess you guys could imagine going into this flight. Did you imagine in your wildest dreams that you guys would pull off this landing in the fashion that you did with no apparent anomalies, or at least that we know of anyway? Did you really think it would come like this, or were you expecting to have to deal with things? Thanks.
100% blind confidence in the team. There's no space for the negative thoughts, but we're always prepared. We did, I think, over 60 official mission simulations, and like you mentioned, you do nominal scenarios, you do off nominal, you pick all sorts of wacky things. I know we did a mission sim one time where it was like, it's a little meteor, like a little, FOD in space hit the spacecraft and took out a solar panel. You kind of make up all these scenarios and you run through them. And it's really to make sure that when the team's actually operating like they did tonight, that there's nothing that can surprise them. So, I always had full faith in this team. We've been working so hard, but not just hard, but smart. We really did focus on, what are the highest risks that we need to burn down? What are the things we need to absolutely test, analyze, model, and then practice. And we did our last practice of descent actually last night. And Joel was able to sit in on that and see how it went. And I think it went very similar to how it went tonight, huh? You can tell me.
Well, I'll add from NASA that in going through the sim last night, watching the Firefly team, I was amazed at how close today's landing was to the sim yesterday. I was really surprised. Really impressive.
Thank you. We'll take one more from the phone and then we'll come back to the room.
Our next question comes from Will Robinson-Smith with Space Flight Now. Your line is open.
Hi, thanks for talking with us this morning. Congratulations again. Question for Ray and Joel, I suppose. Can you outline the rough timeline for bringing the NASA payloads on board, commissioning those beyond the ones that obviously were in use during the landing sequence? Thanks.
You want me to?
Yeah, start.
Absolutely. So the team is going to roll immediately into payload commissioning. Once we confirm that the lander is safely on the lunar surface, there's a couple parallel activities that'll take place. First off, we're going to deploy our X-band antenna. That's on a gimbal, and that gimbal actually has 2 NASA payloads on it. So those will immediately go up. That's NGLR and Lugray are on that gimbal, so we'll get that moving. But our payload team on site, our payload managers partnered with the NASA payload managers that are in our Mission Operations Center. They're immediately going into payload commissioning and operation. So really the first 3 days on the surface are going to be very, very busy. Our goal, like I mentioned earlier, is to really maximize the amount of time we have on the moon. So really, it's a long-winded way of saying that payload operations start now. There's no break, and the team just moves right into it.
And this is Joel from NASA Science. I'd like to add that we competed this and we gave Firefly the challenge of working with us to put together the ops plan to run over the 14 days these 10 different experiments. So there's going to be science operations every day for the remainder of the mission. And we're from all the work we've seen with the NASA leaders, like our project scientist Maria Banks, planning this with the payload leaders at Firefly, we think this is going to be really successful, and it's going to show a higher bar of the number of investigations we're going to do on this and future close missions compared to the initial missions.
Okay, let's go over to you, Jackie.
Hi, Jackie Waddles, CNN. Question, I think, for Joel. You always talk about how these C.L.P.S missions don't all have to go perfectly. You think of them as kind of shots on goal. So can you talk a little bit about how a first-time attempt and a fully successful landing, how that affects the overall success of the program, what it means for your outlook? And then also, as you work with all of these different C.L.P.S providers, so from a bird's eye view, what was kind of the secret sauce to the success tonight?
Well, I would say that we've asked these companies to do a really, really difficult thing. And the thing that's interesting from the government buying these services is we see very different technical approaches of the different companies that are doing this for the United States. And I would say that one thing that distinguishes Firefly is that it was clear that they were extremely technical, rigorous, very rigorous technically from the get-go, as Ray said, looking at a lot of simulations to understand the operations and the performance of their vehicle. The other C.L.P.S providers also have strengths in those areas, but it was very apparent the level of detail in the design and the planning that was done by Firefly. And as you said, in response to your question again, one of the things that's really interesting for the government is to see all these different approaches and then see which of those strengths are really realized in execution. So we're looking forward to having, as Vanessa said, another C.L.P.S landing coming up next week. There are several others that, if the companies are ready, could go later in 2025. We have others selected that will fly from 2026 to 2028. So we will see over time which technical approaches and which management approaches work reliably, and we'll be able to feed that into our future planning at NASA.
Thank you, Joel. We're going to go over to Walt.
Hey guys, Rudy Koski with Fox 7 in Austin. I'm a child of the Apollo era, and looking at the makeup of this team and Ray, that's not the traditional face of space or the old space. And to the NASA crew over here, how excited are you about seeing all these young faces involved in this kind of technology and this kind of science? And what does that mean for companies like Firefly and others?
So I'll start by saying it is incredibly exciting. We in NASA science, we work hard to kind of lower the boundaries and make science accessible so that we can inspire the next generation. And when you look at Firefly, you see that in action. I'm also just a child of the Apollo era, and I agree. It is just absolutely wonderful. Yet Ray is just an absolute rock star. She's led this team from the very beginning, just amazing. But looking at the professionalism, the discipline, as she said, everyone was calm. They were just doing their job. They were just executing flawlessly. And this is exactly what we want to see. We want to inspire the next generation. We want to build a sustainable economy, space economy for the U.S., inspiring these U.S. companies to step forward and take on these challenges and support NASA to do great things. And it is just really, really beautiful to see such an amazing example of and success with the Firefly team.
Yeah, and I will add, it's very exciting to see the workforce. And one thing that I did notice tonight when they were showing some of the videos was that they were showing not just the employees, but their families, the community. And that was very inspiring as well. But when you think about when Ray was talking about being able to go to school in an area and then be able to work in an area because you have entrepreneurs, the universities are putting out lots of young, great talent. And so we have to make sure that we have opportunities. And so again, having the types of partnerships that we have today allows us to be able to have more companies to be in local areas so that we can do the same kinds of things. I know when I was driving in today and I was thinking about Austin, and I was like, this is so cool that we have Firefly right here in Austin. So.
Thank you. We have one more from the room, and we'll take the next one from the phone. Right up here.
Hi, Andrea Leinfelder of the Houston Chronicle. Congratulations. So I feel like a lot of the time I hear talk about going to the South Pole through Artemis or through some of these other landers, and I know NASA directed Firefly not to go to the South Pole this time, but I'd like to hear from either Vanessa or Nikki, how this fits into the bigger exploration plans for the moon, and why it's not just the South Pole. Thank you.
Yeah, this time, why not the South Pole?
Sure. The moon is an incredible place to do science. You'll hear me say all the time, we do NASA science from the center of the sun to the edge of the universe, and we really do. And in that same spirit, when we go to the moon, for science, we don't want to go to the same place every single time because we want to learn more and more about the moon. It's like going on vacation. You don't want to go to the same place all the time. You want to go all over the place and learn about as much as you can. And so as we are preparing to send astronauts back, we want to make sure we understand all the areas. And so we're characterizing it for astronaut safety, but we're also looking at where the most interesting regions are. And as Joel said, we give a challenge of we want you to land in this place and take all these instruments because it's a package deal for us. All of the instruments are kind of, it's almost like a holistic suite. They are perfectly chosen for the region that we're going to. And this one is very geologically interesting. It's the site of where an asteroid hit, sort of filled it with lava. It's a very, very interesting region. It also allows us to look at kind of the solar-wind interaction, look at a preserved record of what the ancient sun was like and how it interacted with the moon, giving us information about kind of the early solar system. So as we sort of think about how life formed and why life formed here on Earth, the moon we know is a big part of that, and understanding kind of how everything formed. This is a really, really great location to do that. With the intuitive machines that'll land later, going close to the South Pole, very, very different goals, going to look for volatiles down there in partially shadowed regions. And so really it is just like, your delivery service. You pick the place you want your package to go, and that's just what we did with Firefly.
Thank you, Nikki. Let's take the next one from the phone.
Our next question comes from Isam Ahmed with Agents Brands Press. Your line is open.
Thank you very much. First one, perhaps for Jason. Congratulations on the first upright landing. Did you take any lessons away from the IM-1 mission, which landed sideways? And how much do you sort of credit the fact that your vehicle has a very low center of gravity for the success? And perhaps one for Nikki Fox, if I may. We did hear earlier from Janet Petro that about how this is for America first and for U.S. citizens. It just felt like a notable departure from some prior shift in the rhetoric from talking about for all humanity and all mankind. And I was wondering if that's now NASA's position. Thank you.
I'll start by saying, our team, of course, did the logical thing and looked at all the missions before us, but our design was unique to Firefly, and it's, it's a successful design. And you look at past designs, and past designs that were successful look very similar, short and squatty. So it's about 6 foot 6 inches tall and about 11.5 inches wide. And so, with a low center of gravity. So certainly, me being an engineer by trade and coming into the company with fresh eyes, that was the first observation. It's like, hey, it's short and squatty, has a good center of gravity, and looks like a really stout design. So I would agree with you there. But if you unpack it, the team just did a lot of good designs with a lot of margin. So that's one thing. They did a lot of testing, a lot of qualification of the system and the subsystem, and a lot of simulation. So that it really goes back to really sound discipline engineering, was said before. Firefly has really great engineering expertise at the company, and that shows. So the thing that I took away from having conversations with other CEOs from other companies like Intuitive Machines was, Steve said just the number one thing to do is just be transparent. And I think Firefly did a great job of being transparent. I mean, every single maneuver, we talked about it. We said what we said we were going to do, and we did it. And then if there was any delta, we would explain why there was a delta. Why did we wait 24 hours for LOI 3? Well, we want to get mass properties and nail that the next time. So, it's just that transparency is something that builds camaraderie, builds support for our team, and the whole world was supporting us. I mean, if you don't live under a rock and you're on X, there were so many people tracking us, so many people commenting on us and asking questions. And, the Firefly way, we were very transparent. But, I think at the end of the day, it was a successful mission. And what we're going to take from this is all the lessons learned are going to be documented, and then we're going to pull that forward for Blue Ghost 2 and Blue Ghost 3 and any other commercial lander that we build.
We have another question on the line.
Our next question comes from Tariq Malik with Space.com. Your line is open.
Yes, thank you. It's Tarek Malik of Space.com, and I have a question for Ray. If you could take us inside the flight control room there with those last few minutes ahead of touchdown. Before landing, you told us that you expected it to be fairly nail-biting at the end there, but it sounds like everything went as smooth as silk there. So I'm just curious what that atmosphere was like, and then how everyone felt kind of seeing this awesome photo that you just released with the Earth reflected on the panels on the surface of the moon. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for that question. So leading up to landing on the moon, I think the mood kind of shifted throughout the day. Earlier in the day, it was pretty relaxed. Everyone was just kind of preparing. We actually send the command to do DOI and PDI several hours in advance. And then you're really just checking in on the lander. I'd say that, the anxiety and the tension, maybe excitement is a better word, definitely rose throughout the day. But you could really tell, right kind of around the start of PDI, around 15 minutes before touchdown, the mood in the room definitely kind of shifted. It became much more quiet, very serious. People definitely, you're looking at your data in a very focused manner. And at that point, most of the console seats had two operators on them. You kind of have a primary operator, you have a secondary operator that's looking at data. So, that's kind of your big hold your breath moment, look at data. And then immediately following, we went into checking the status of that lander. We really had 4 kind of clear criteria that we wanted to make sure and verify prior to clearly stating that we had successfully landed on the moon. And that was that final call out that you heard from our chief engineer, Will Coogan. And at that point, the room just kind of erupted. Everyone was like, kind of forgot what their job was for a second, and which is good, and you just kind of toss your headset and you just hug the people standing next to you because they're the people you've been working with for so long, and it's just kind of this victory. And then you asked a second part of your question, but now I can't remember what it is. Do y'all remember?
No, that we're just proud of you, Ray.
Thank you.
Yeah, we have one more question on the line.
Our next question comes from Leo Enright with Irish TV. Your line is open.
Thanks very much, and congratulations. American moon landing seems a bit like buses. You wait 50 years for one of them, they all come together. I was just wondering about those 2 images released. I noticed that Bochum Observatory in Germany doesn't appear yet to be seeing X-band, so I assume those were low-res on the S-band, and I'm just wondering, when will we see higher-res images, and will we get a 360 pan?
Yeah, I can start, and then if Jason, you have anything to add. So you're absolutely correct. The first images that came down were from our S-band, so we do consider those lower resolution. We are presently, in parallel with getting those payloads up and running, we are deploying our antenna that's on that top deck. That X-band antenna sits on a gimbal. And it moves very slowly and in a very precise manner. So we expect that gimbal to take several hours to fully deploy, and then we will be able to get a lot more data and a lot more high resolution. So you're absolutely right. Those are things that will come in the coming hours, and we're hoping that early. Today, I forgot what day it is, but a few hours we'll have those higher resolution images and video for everyone.
I just wanted to pop in because there was a question and we cut it off before I had a chance to answer it, which was about the America First question. And I just wanted to say, we are very, very proud of our C.L.P.S program. It was started in 2018. The idea of the C.L.P.S program is to build a sustainable space economy with U.S. businesses, and so that has not changed at all. We're extremely, extremely proud of the work that our U.S. Commercial companies are doing in partnership with NASA. When we talk about Artemis, we are going back as a global community. That is why we have the Artemis Accords. And so, we encourage all of our partners, the U.S. partners and allies, but together with NASA and with our U.S. companies, we are going to lead the world as NASA does and continue to inspire moving forward, doing great science, doing great exploration together.
Do we have any more questions in the room? I think we have one more on the phone.
Our next question comes from Will Robinson-Smith with Spaceflight Now. Your line is open.
Yes, hi. Thanks for allowing one more question. Question, I guess, for Ray or Joel again. The Blue Ghost lunar lander will operate for a few hours into the lunar night. What are the final payload operations that are going to be conducted during those final hours? And, based on the health of the lander and the success of the mission so far, about how far into the night are you expecting to go? Thanks.
Yeah, so as a baseline, we plan on operating 5 hours into the lunar night, but really our goal is going to be to capture as much data as possible into the lunar night. We're going to continue to operate the lander as long as our batteries have a state of charge and that we can continue to get data. There's a lot of really interesting phenomena that will happen, particularly at sunset, that we really want to make sure and capture. We've talked a lot about the regolith and this phenomena of it levitating off the surface. So we'll really utilize all of the cameras on board. We'll also partner with the C.L.P.S payload, which is a set of cameras on board to make sure that we get as much imagery and data back of that particular event. So, you asked about what other payloads. It's really, I think many of them will continue to be powered on all the way through up until, nighttime.
That's right. Well, we will take measurements from many of the payloads to pick up aspects such as what will be different that we'll observe, through photography, as well as how temperatures will change and how that might change some of the payload measurements, and we will be happy to run them for the life of the lander.
Well, that does it for all the questions today. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for your questions and staying with us on this journey throughout the night and being here with us today. Thank you to the briefers for being with us to talk about this historic Blue Ghost mission and the NASA Commercial Lunar Payload Initiative. You can follow the latest mission updates on our Firefly website at fireflyspace.com. For the latest C.L.P.S updates, please follow nasa.gov/C.L.P.S. But before we leave, I want to leave you with one more incredible, breathtaking image from the moon.
OMG.
Wow. Beautiful. That's great. We're all in that picture.